Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Super excited to talk to this woman today. She brings a lot of insight. I'm going to take a guess here and say that she's going to open our eyes, or at least make us think a little bit about things that we might not have thought of, or maybe view things from a different angle. I just met her. We talked for maybe 5 minutes before we jumped on here today. She's an author, she's a coach. She brings a lot of spiritualism and faith to us. She's Marlena Compston, and she joins us today. Welcome. How are you doing?
Good morning, Steve. I'm great. Good to be here with you.
Good to have you here too. Right away, I feel this amazing, positive, energetic vibe coming from you. Quite refreshing, got to tell you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to step right in and tell you, truly, it is the infilling of the Holy Spirit. We show up in this world, and even as a baby, we're pushed out of the womb into the bright lights. And I think from an early age, we begin thinking like, what am I here for? And, I was telling Zoe earlier, hey, I'm not 29 anymore. I'm not even 39. I'll stop right there.
Same.
Right. But you know what? Here's the beauty of it all is God has such a good plan for our life. But in my own situation, I had to run for 30 years or more before I finally bowed my knees and said, God, I'm done. Just use me for your purposes, Lord. And that's exactly what he's doing. And like I was telling you in our pre-talk, I'm really not a big deal, but my God is. I'm really not that special. I say all the time, I'm just a little redheaded gal from Oklahoma. But I'll tell you, I have a heavenly Father that he literally, Steve, and I mean literally, dragged me out of depression and near suicide in 1992. We had several weeks together. I'm excited about that. We're probably going to have a couple that we touch on that I'm going to call the tunnel of suicide. There's a ton of people all around us every day, and we have absolutely no idea what's going on in their head and heart. I'm going to go ahead and share just a few weeks ago. I have a ladies group called The Journey, and the Lord dropped that on me a couple of years ago. I thought it was going to be the title of a book. Nope, it's a ladies group. We might have 5, we might have 10, we might have 12. One of the ladies has been in and out of ICU since November. I took dinner over to them a few weeks ago. It's a mother and a daughter. While I was there, because God has given me this prophetic gifting, I felt it. I recognized it as soon as I stepped in the house, really. And I dearly love these women. And I talked with her sitting on the couch. She's not in great shape. And I said, are you wanting to die? Do you plan to commit suicide? And she said, I do. I've been thinking about it for months. If it's an accident, my mom and my son can have insurance money to live on, because I don't know if I'm ever going to get better. And I'm going to tell you, Steve, right then and there, I prayed that off of her, and I prayed that spirit of suicide out of her home. And then I prayed a spirit of life around her. Soon, I hope I have a better report. She's still struggling. The enemy wants to take us out. I think many of us are targeted from a young age. One of our podcasts, if not more, will go with however it happens. I experienced sexual trauma at 3.5 years old. I will tell you, you take a 3.5-year-old child that is welcomed into a sexual world, their entire confidence is totally gone. Their trust is totally broken. And let me tell you how the enemy works, Steve. The enemy then, it's like it comes into our head, the very child, the victim, no matter the age, they think it's their fault. And the enemy is really pretty stupid. He uses the same lies time and time again and has for generations. And I'm here to talk with you over this next 7 weeks. We're going to discuss the tunnel of suicide. At 3.5 years old, because I knew my mother would give me 1 or 2 of these little orange pills when I didn't feel well, you can only imagine how I felt. I felt so dirty. There's nothing that I could do to feel better. And I crawled my little butt up on that cabinet and reached that bottle of pills, and it was a big one. And I took every single one of them, and I had to get my stomach pumped.
What age
And I
did you
got
do, what age did you do that?
3.5. It was very shortly after the trauma happened, May 1965. The Holy Spirit had me, I never thought about it, about a dozen years ago. I reached out to the hospital and got the record, the written record of that emergency room visit. The doctor, who may have been the doctor that delivered me in Muskogee, Oklahoma, he had to talk my mother into doing the stomach pump operation, the procedure. She's single, has 3 kids. I'm sure she's like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? But the doctor said, he finally got her permission, pumped 8 big clumps out of my little belly. And he said in the note, I just hope this baby survives. Again, what I said a little bit ago, Steve, I'm just one person. But I'll tell you what, God can and will use every single thing in our life to turn around for his good, for his purposes. And my very call is from Isaiah 61. My very call in life is to set the captives free. And I'm so grateful for this program. But let me tell you, I think I already said, but the doctor said, I just hope this baby survives. The spirit of suicide came on me then. The enemy wanted to welcome me out right then. And I was very close to it. If he hadn't gotten my mom's permission, I just simply wouldn't be here.
I feel it's my job to ask questions.
Ask. I hope to have answers.
Okay. And thank you for being very transparent and honest about all of that. Many would say, well, why would God let that happen to a baby? Why?
Well, we can go on and on and on. Why does God allow war? Why does God allow this? Why does God allow that? Do you know that God actually created us for fellowship? He didn't create a mess. But if we go back to the garden, do you know really what the very root of everything is? Is pride. Eve wanted, hey, Adam and Eve had a perfect situation. They didn't have to work. They didn't have to go to marriage counseling. They didn't have to buy clothing. They didn't have any trouble. They had no sickness. But the serpent, as we know the story, the enemy, let me step aside for a moment. Do you know that Satan was the most beautiful angel that God ever created? He had everything. He had everything. He was the most beautiful. But guess what happened, Steve? That spirit of pride. I want more. I need to be fulfilled. I need to take a step to the right for a second. I was talking with someone a few days ago. They're unhappy. And I said, why do you think you're so unhappy? what do you want in your life? And their comment was, I just want to be fulfilled. A little indignant. And I said, aha, that's the very problem right there. You think you're here. You think you are here to be fulfilled. No, we are here to fulfill a purpose. There is a plan for each one of us. So let me step back to your question. I don't know the answer, Steve, but I do know that we have an enemy of our soul. This entity, Lucifer, Satan, he had it all, but it wasn't enough. He wanted God's position. And he got kicked out with all the demonic, basically with the angels that followed him. And they're the ones that are creating havoc. God did not design for Marlena Compston to receive sexual trauma on May 25th of 1965. But what I believe, the enemy saw a little light in me and said, go get her. And that day, with that bottle of pills, was the plan to take me out. And somewhere, somehow, God said, oh no, not today. Let's jump forward to July 4th of 92. Actually, we need to go back. I had, again, depression, suicidal thoughts. March 4th, 91. I'll go into more of this later. That same spirit of suicide that had surrounded me my whole life, that had stayed pretty hidden. By the way, I never told anyone about the trauma that happened to me. First of all, 3.5 years old, that's pretty blasted young. Do
And
you think anyone?
and the fact that you remembered it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Who was I going to share that with? What exactly was I going to tell them? And remember, I thought it was my fault. During this situation happening, what went through my own little mind was, if someone walks in the room and sees this happening, I'm going to be in trouble. Do you see how the enemy perverts? Do you see how he twists and turns? I held that inside of me until I believe I was 31 years old. Actually, I was 30. So I'll just tell you again, we're going to talk more in our upcoming podcasts about suicide, the lies of it. Everyone will say, oh, that's the most selfish thing a person could do. Well, I'm here to tell you that's really not the situation. And I'll get more into that, the details of that, because I have seen the face of suicide 3 times. And I am standing, well, actually, I'm sitting. I am here to tell you, God has a plan. If we will just bend our knees, if just one time we might look to heaven and say, I've made a mess of this. And I really need help.
But did you really make a mess of it?
Well, not when I was 3.5.
No, but even just when somebody says, I don't know why this is happening to me, I'm just a good person. And then this happened, and then that happened, and that happened.
Well, that segues me right into what I want to share about Moses. I said to you in our pre-talk, there's this beautiful movie that just came out about Moses. I think it's Netflix. I had a lady say, I could not watch that. That was not scriptural. Well, it's a movie. They have to throw in more things because they don't know how it all went. Let me tell you, I loved it. If you don't know the story of Moses, and I'm talking to anyone listening, go to the book of Exodus and read it. It's fascinating. Watch the movie. It's fascinating. But what I want to share is Moses was born during a time that Pharaoh said, kill all the boys. His mom placed him into a basket. Do you know the story, Steve?
No.
It's okay if you don't. Placed him into a basket with like tar on the bottom, where basically he was put into the river and sent down the river. His mother, who I know full well loved him dearly and wanted him, she had no choice. She knew this was the only way to save his life. Talking about abandonment issues. Your mom sends you down the river? But she did it to save his life. And what she didn't know was that he was going to flow right into the hands of Pharaoh's, I believe, sister. And interesting that she had just lost her own child, I think a stillbirth. And she hears a cry and goes into the weeds. And there's the baby boy laying in this basket. And she takes that baby. She knew full well it was, you know, she knew it was one of the babies that was to be killed. And she told her handmaidens, you do not say anything. So Moses, in what seemed like a horrible situation of pure abandonment by his mother, but she actually was saving his life. How did she know that it wasn't going to toss over and he was going to be eaten by an alligator? No, he went right into the hands of Pharaoh's family, was raised as part of that family. And then the story goes that basically he killed a man. He knew, by the way, he knew he didn't belong. There was just something inside of him. He just knew he didn't belong where he was. He had everything he could possibly ask for. He killed a man that was beating on an Israelite. They were all slaves, of course. And he just took off. He left every comfort behind him. And he walked into what he thought would be wilderness. He had no clue where he was going. He was thirsty. He was starving. He was dirty. And what he didn't know was he was walking into the very call on his life. The camp that he walked right into is where he would meet his wife, his father-in-law. And that is when God began speaking to him. He thought he was running. So what you said is exactly right. When I look back at the messes of my life, let me tell you, little girl gets sexual trauma at 3.5 years old. What do you think she did the first, let's say, 20 years of her life? Looking for love in all the wrong places.
Sure.
I kind of hate that line, but it's true.
Sure. You're looking for acceptance. You're looking for what was missing.
Who can I trust? Is there anyone in this world I can trust? Is there anyone that will love me, that won't hurt me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, set yourself up for failure all around.
And the one thing you identified many things, but particularly, it's my belief that most of what we deal with as adults all came from our childhood. And it doesn't have to be a major trauma. It could be something small that you experienced, something you heard, and whatever it might be. Every child is different. They're a clean slate when they're born, and
Yes.
they deal with things differently. But that's why we are the way we are today.
That's right. That is exactly right.
You got to figure that out.
Yes. A lady that I coached several years ago, she had something very heavy and very hurtful spoken to her in kindergarten. It was just a small happening. But do you know, when I was coaching with her, praying with her, prophetic counseling, I'm not supposed to call it counseling, but it was prophetic coaching. This came out. I said, what was going on when you were 5, 6 years old? The Lord was showing me something. And she told me the instance. To not embarrass her, I won't share that. She was 60 plus years old. And that one small instance, Steve, just like you're saying, followed her whole life. She became very heavy, and she had a lot of just self-esteem issues. And we were able to work her through some of that. You know, I don't know yet if she has full deliverance from that, but you're exactly right. That carried with her for 55 plus years.
It's a shame. And a lot of it comes from our parents. And I'm not taking anything away from our parents because they
I'm
did
sure,
the best they could
because
with what they had. And what did they
because
have?
they're also wounded.
Yeah, their parents.
They have
And
their own woundings.
sure.
That's right.
And it's not all about parents. You could have been, I was bullied as a kid, that's, and there, all of that added all up. And that's who we are as adults, as we try to navigate life, relationships, and all of that. And it becomes a challenge until we figure it out.
Well, in Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for good to those that are called according to his purposes. The mere fact that you were bullied, I bet you're pretty tough, actually. My two brothers and I, oh man, I mean, we're just always, my little brother got probably the worst of it all. We had a great time. It was fun. I don't remember really bad times. But I'll tell you what, my little brother, he is tough, man. He's
Mm.
tough as a boot. He was on the police department for, gosh, I think close to 40 years. And I think that little bullying situation we had as kids actually prepared him for what he had to go through being, a captain on the police department. And I admire him so much. He's so solid, just solid as he can be.
Do you think those things happen? I believe everything happens for a reason.
Amen.
But do you think those things that challenge us when we're younger happen to maybe make us stronger later in life?
Absolutely. Just if we go back to Moses, again, it's, was that the perfect plan that his mom had for him, was to place him in a basket? Having absolutely zero idea what was going to happen to her child.
Well, she had something. She had faith.
She
Just
did.
dropping him in a river could have overturned what, who
That's
knows
right.
what could have happened.
That's
She
right.
said, I'm just going to do this because I have faith in
Yes.
whatever you want for the universe, myself, that I'm doing the right thing. We are out of time. I could
Okay.
keep going and learning more here.
Well, the good news is we have 6 more weeks of podcast.
For sure. Yeah. Lots to talk about. And thank you very much for your story. And
Absolutely.
we'll obviously dig deeper into that. I believe we all learn from each other's stories.
Yes.
Take a little piece from this one, a little piece from that one,
Yes.
apply it to ourselves when it works. You have a website that's got a lot of insight. Please share.
I do. It's marlenacompston.co. I'm just beginning to, it's fairly new. I'm just beginning to drop in more of my devotions. I'm on Facebook under Inspire Nations. My book will be out in the next few weeks, Love Illuminated. It's a journey to awaken and deepen your faith. We'll have a link to that here soon, including on my website.
Final question.
Yes, sir.
And we're literally out of time, but I have to ask this question.
Sure.
You had a spiritual awakening, yes?
Yes, I did.
I hear from others who have had them. Everyone is radically different in their description. So
Yes.
next time we get together, I would love to go a little bit deeper there. When it happened,
Yes.
how it happened, what it felt like.
You got it.
Excellent. Marlena, thank you so much for being here today. And
Great to meet you, Steve.
You too. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down,
It's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.